What's going on, everyone? Welcome, RM here, and today we're going to be looking at powering CPU mining rigs. So this video is a long time coming, I suppose. You guys were discussing it in Discord the other day, and I was like, all right, I'm going to put this together and kind of show you exactly how I have mine set up. Now, it doesn't mean you got to do the same thing. This might just be an idea for you, but there's a couple different ways I have it. One, we're going to run through the server power supply, and two, we're going to run through the 1 ATX power supply per 2 rigs. So we're going to go through both types of setups here. I will have links to everything down in the description so you can kind of source it a little bit easier for yourself. But then again, you don't have to do what I do. So let's start with number one, and probably the most common way to do it. And that is just like your basic PC setup. That is one power supply, one motherboard, one CPU, one complete case, whatever, everything. But the thing with this is, in a lot of people's case, especially back in the discussion of 2021 bull run, is scaling up a CPU mining farm takes a lot more room versus scaling up something like your GPU farm that's hanging out down there, stacking up a bunch of GPUs into a case, single motherboard, and so on, where motherboards and everything take up so much room. So that's kind of what I've been experimenting with over time, finding different ways to run this, different ways to stand up your motherboards, and so on. So number one here, obviously your basic way is not that great for stacking up a farm because it does use so much room. So we're trying to move past the traditional way of a standard PC setup for our mining farms. So the next step is that this is what I'm trying now, but we're going to go with step number two. So number two is the server power supply, and these are very common for a lot of people that are rocking, you know, your GPU mining farms and so on, is utilizing server power supply. So here in this case, I have a single 1200 watt server power supply, and it is powering 5 CPU mining rigs. So I have 5 hooked up to here. Now this is going to be a different case scenario for all of you guys out there, because number one, it depends how do you run your CPU mining rigs. Myself personally, I do only run at the base clock or lower, but usually it's around the base clock, and if you go above that, you start overclocking your CPU, which requires more voltages, more expensive motherboards, and then that'll be less rigs on a single server power supply. So for an example here, it also comes down to the algorithm you want to mine. So it's going to come down to, are you going to be switching to different coins? Most likely we're going to be swapping around depending on hash rates, profitabilities, and so on. So you're going to want to kind of calculate for the highest power rated algorithm and then kind of build with the lowest depending on the profitability. So example here, Duro, for example, only uses like 95 watts or something on my CPU rigs. Something like Ghost Rider averages around 85 watts, but you can see as low as 70, and at sometimes at the peak, you will hit upwards of around 110. Again, if you're overclocking it, you're going to see a lot more power draws, and Random X runs steady at about 109 watts at 3.6 and like 0.97 volts on a 3900X. Now, if you were to overclock this for something like, say, Random X, you could see an extra 2 kilohash or something, but you could be pushing your complete system from that 109 watts upwards to over 240 watts. So here you can see, get a watt meter, make sure you know what everything is running at before you can fit the amount of rigs on your server power supply. Now, once you do get your calculations all figured out, you are going to want to try to run on server power supplies anywhere, depending on the brand, 50 to 70%. Some, the peak efficiency is 70%. A lot of these HPs, like this 1200 watt one, is 50%. So you're going to want to run it around 600 watts for peak efficiency. At the same time, if you switch algorithms to something that may have peaked in profitability or something, you may then want to make sure you do not go over the capacity of that power supply. So it comes down to your own mathematical skills on which ones you're going to run, what algorithm you're going to run. You're going to have to do that own testing on your own to figure out how you want to run yours. It's cheap. People with cheaper power probably run higher clocks, and people with more expensive power obviously going to run more efficient. So based on my settings, I can run about 6 rigs on this at 50%. It's a 1200 watt server power supply. I'm running around 600 watts if I had 6. Currently I only have 5, so I could squeeze one more on. So let's just start here. We got a 1200 watt server power supply rocking here. And again, this would only be 900 watts if you were on 120 volt. I am on 240, so it is the full 1200. I am utilizing the X4 breakout board from Parallel Miner. It's coming in with 16 gauge wires. Actually, no, these are 14 gauge wires coming out. And then we're going into a Pico. So this is the Pico right here. This is a 300 watt Pico switch that I am utilizing to power each one. Now each rig needs its own Pico because this has your 24 pin as well as your CPU power. This is what your power coming in everywhere is. So here coming down, I did switch the ends out. Normally this was barrel plugs. I still have one barrel plug active right here. You can see right down in there. So this one still has a barrel plug on. I got to switch that out sometime, but I swapped these over to these Anderson plugs because they are a lot higher rated in terms of power, and if you get the wrong barrel plugs, you will easily melt those. So the powering process here for the Picos on this X4 breakout board, now you could probably use like an X11 or something, get some thick cables and just pull them out and only use the two. But I didn't go that route. I went this way so I know exactly which cable are grounds or not. So it does have two split sides here. Everything on the left hand side is a ground, they're black. Everything on the right hand side here is positive and they're yellow. They are coming out of there, two wires into these right here, our Anderson plugs, which then goes into our Pico switch right here. And all I did was chop the wires off on each end here. Actually, the parallel ones came open-ended, and then I cut the barrel plugs off and then crimped up my own crimps here for the Anderson plugs. Now Anderson plugs also require their own special crimper here, as you can see, and it has the certain sizes here based on the gauge of the wire. Whoa, lost focus. Right there, based on the gauge of the wire you're using. So you will need the special Anderson plug crimper to utilize those style of plugs. Now with the Pico here, and again, these are 300 watt Picos. We got our 24 pin going into our 24 pin right here on our motherboard, and then splitting off of the 24 pin is also a 4 pin for our 4-pin CPU power, and then there's another 4 pin coming off right here that goes over here. And here you can see how I have them plugged in. Now they do not work side by side to get your complete 8 pin there. I actually have one in the normal 8 pin as a 4, it's kind of split in half, and the other one is in the extra OC plug just for that extra stability. So I'm not sure if this is, you know, actually taking the power from the secondary 4 pin or not, but I have not had any issues in over, I guess, 2 years at this point. Now with that being said, I do have one of these which I have not tried yet, and this is actually a 400 watt Pico switch. So this is a lot thicker. It doesn't have the big plate there, but it does come out, and it's utilizing, in this case, it does have 2 barrel plugs with a lot thicker wires coming in than those 300 watt Picos do. Also, it has 2 8 pins. So the 7000 series motherboards, they actually require a single 8 pin on top of an 8 pin for that extra OC of extra voltages. So maybe this is for both CPUs. Maybe you could utilize one for a GPU. I don't know. I haven't really played around with this one yet. And then we got 2 SATA power cables here for 2 hard drives. So that's what we would utilize for our hard drives there. 2 SATAs, 2 8 pins, and 2 barrel plugs to plug in, and 1 big beastly 24 pin plug. So again, that's a 400 watt Pico, which I did not experiment with yet. And as I pointed out, the other one, that 400 watt, does have the SATA for your hard drive. So if you are running like an SSD, like in this rig for example, it does split off of that 24 pin and comes out into a SATA drive here for your, or a SATA plug for your SSD drive. So that is there for power as well. Everything is powered from this Pico coming in from those 2 wires, which is why I recommend probably 14 gauge wire. These are nice and cool. They don't heat up or anything. Usually the weak spots in anything is in your pins, so keep that in mind. So that is the Picos and the server power supplies. Now we're going to look at the 1 ATX and 2 rigs per ATX. And in this case, we're utilizing a 24 pin splitter. Now usually it looks like on the second fan, your fan is actually spinning a little bit slower than if they were live on the main one. So you can see just how much faster. Actually the camera kind of makes it look like it's slowed down more than it really is, but it's still turning pretty fast. When I put my finger in there, it hurts, and I've done it lots, and I've done it on video lots just to show you. This thing is still spinning pretty good. But regardless, we got the 24 pin splitters here. I got them here, I got them here, and you're probably wondering, Kate, now what do? How are you powering the actual CPU power? And I got actually a CPU 8-pin splitter going in there as well. Now, depending on your power supply, some power supplies may have 2 CPU outputs. Therefore, you can just run 2 cables, 1 to each rig, utilizing those 2 different CPU outputs. So in this rig here, you can see the CPU pin splitter where it is coming out of your power supply here. It's splitting off. One is going into this motherboard and the other one is going into the motherboard right behind it. And that's pretty much the spacing we have. And then I just kind of have the ATX PSU hanging out behind the second rig here. Now on this one down here, you can actually see this EVGA power supply has 2 CPU outputs, and each one of those cables are going to individual CPU mining rigs. So that's the other way that you could utilize this as well. Again, for the 24 pin, you will need that 24 pin splitter going to each of those. And just like our server power supply, when it comes to PSU efficiencies and stuff, ATX PSUs are usually in that 50% range. Always look into the manufacturer specs to make sure you know exactly where your peak ranges and everything are. So in this case, for 2 CPU mining rigs to run peak efficiency, you're going to be on around 250 watts. So probably around a 500 watt power supply will be optimal. Again, if you are planning on running these overclocking and stuff, you're probably going to want to upgrade to maybe a 750 watt and so on. All right, guys, so that is currently how I have my CPU mining rigs all set up here for my mining farm. Now, you guys can do that. You don't have to do it. If you have any thoughts or suggestions, let me know in the comments and I could try something else out as well. But upon looking at this again, I'm thinking about maybe, just maybe, converting everything into server power supplies. Now, I don't know for sure yet, but I'm going to show you why. So, as you know, I have these stands here, and I believe Chump Change XD, he is building, or he made a design. Actually, it's the same design as these. He put his symbol into it, and he's selling them on his store. So if you're looking for those, you can get them at the Misfit Mining store there. Or I do have, if you have a 3D printer or something, I have mine in the CPU mining chat pin there. You can just download the STL and just print them out yourself. Regardless, we're working on a new design here. I don't know where the prototype version is yet, but it's like a hanger. So these are about 1 foot long for an ATX. Now, obviously a micro ATX motherboard is even smaller, but I'm gonna be moving all these CPUs over to that rack over there very soon. So these are about 1 foot long. So I'm gonna kind of run through there and I want you guys' thoughts on this. So here's the rack I plan on moving it to, and 1 foot from, I guess, the bar here is down to about here. So I have like that much space. So I'm thinking I could probably fit 3 or 4 in a line hanging. So that means like 4, 8, and I could have a server power supply right here. But with that height, I still might be able just to run ATX power supplies underneath of them for the 2. But I'm thinking, you know, a single server power supply for like 6 of them, that I could just go, you know, 6, 12, and so on, and just kind of run up a row of server power supplies, run up a whole hanging rack there of CPUs. I got enough down over there, and we could load up a lot of CPU mining rigs in here, and, you know, 4 in a row or something, and, you know, keep going from there. So that's kind of my ideas. I still don't know for sure. It also comes down to the prototype of the hanger that I'm still waiting on to see if we can actually hang these pretty good from here and then get the right height adjustments and go from there. But that's my ideas on what I want to do with my farm right now. So let me know what you guys think kind of about this idea right now. All right, guys, so this pretty much does wrap this up. Hopefully it helps you out in powering your CPU mining rigs. I will see you on the next one. RM out.